Copyright disclaimer.
On June 2nd and June 6th, I posted 2 complimentary videos. One regarding wedding origins, the vows and rituals, and the other looking at the biblical understanding of whether or not we are supposed to take oaths. This dialogue will serve as a review to the former dialogue. In the videos, I shared the biblical of wedding oaths, whether or not we should be taking oaths at all. And the other reference guide was regarding the history of vows and rituals. So in looking at this dialogue, I'm going to frame my viewpoints. We're in the awakening era. Should we continue to make decisions just haplessly, mindlessly, traditionally, or should we, as we awaken closer and closer to our true identities, really question the motives of everything we're doing today?
View 1. Wedding vows are not biblical.
Wedding vows are not biblical. Because in the Old Testament vows, you can only make a vow to God. One of the reasons God does not want us to make oaths or vows is because you have to swear by something, a created thing. And because you're not the creator, you can't swear by anything in creation. So if you swear even by yourself, the Bible says you did not even create yourself. Wedding vows did not come from the Bible. They came from 1549. A man named Thomas Cranmer wrote a book, the Book of Prayer. And then the Catholic Church enacted from that book vows into weddings today, and that was how they lawfully recognized marriage. The Catholic Church is big on vows. But what does the Bible say? Not what does a church system say, but what does God, who specifically spoke in the New Testament, in the form of Jesus, what does he say? So even if the Catholic Church believes in vows, if Jesus himself, who the church is supposed to follow and be based on, says that we're not supposed to make them, then who are you going to choose? The Catholic Church or Jesus? So if you choose to make wedding vows, you're following the Catholic tradition. You're not following godly order. One of the reasons why oaths, vows, are not of God is because you have to swear by something. And God says you can't even swear by your own self because you did not make yourself. You couldn't even swear on your own hair, let alone any other aspect of God's creation. You couldn't justify it because you can't make a vow to a created being. Even if it is your spouse, you cannot make a vow to them. If you wanted to at least somewhat legitimize wedding vows or justify it as something we are supposed to do, then both spouses are to make the vow to God if they wanted to disobey what Jesus said in the New Testament. But there is no New Testament nor biblical justification for wedding/marriage oaths/marriage vows. A wedding vow requires you to make a vow where you swear by your word, your promises to this person. So that's swearing by the present moment into the future actions. And you cannot swear by anything. And you cannot swear to anyone or to anything if it is not God directly. So the wedding vows are not even biblically rooted. And what's further interesting about wedding vows is they weren't even in the Old Testament. So they're not practiced anywhere in the Bible.
View 2. Wedding rituals are not of God.
As for wedding rituals, I absolutely think those are satanic, and as is to the history of their formation. Most of the wedding rituals come from cultures discussed in the Bible, but the way they were articulated were as nations antichrist, nations that did not love God. For example, most of the wedding rituals we perform today are from ancient Egypt. And when ancient Egypt was conquered by other civilizations, those ancient practices were then merged with the cultural norms of those conquerors. For example, Greece and Roman culture, a lot of which borrows from ancient Egypt. So you'll find that much of the rituals we do in weddings are Greek, Roman, and Egyptian. And if you go into the Bible and it speaks about the Egyptians, they were the oppressors of God's people, but they were also practicing many things that God hated. Plagues were sent to them for their wickedness. You go into the ancient Greek culture, the ancient Roman culture, once again, societies that did not value God. The rituals that are in wedding culture, whether they're fertility, whether they are to deal with evil spirits, it doesn't glorify God.
Wedding rituals are designed to help you with your bloodlines and marriage. Most wedding rituals are not biblical, and instead are designed to take the place of God.
What's disturbing is nearly everything in wedding culture, even the things that I wouldn't have thought about, are rituals. Veils, cakes, rings, a white dress, bouquet. These are all tied to ancient Greece, Egyptian, or ancient Roman rituals and belief systems. So the creepy thing is that any time we do these practices, you may call it tradition, but it's actually a ritual. So we are ritualizing ourselves into a marriage. And these rituals often deal with evil spirits. So if you are to have bridesmaids, this fights off evil spirits. Or if you cut a wedding cake, this can guarantee your fertility. These fertility rituals, these warding off evil spirits, did not exemplify God at all, because they don't even speak about God. And you'll find that none of it is in the Bible, so that's pretty interesting as well. Well, that's all I have. I do not believe we are supposed to make wedding oaths or wedding vows. I do not believe we are supposed to conduct wedding rituals because these things come from practices that are not biblical. So we have to determine for ourselves in this awakening era, are we going to continue these practices, or are we going to have to start looking for godly/biblical, not even alternatives, but what we should have been doing in the first place, and how we've deviated and how we've been lied to for so long? Well, that is all I have for this discussion. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Gershly Karen Pierre, and I'm pro-marriage, pro-the nuclear family. Stay tuned for more.